Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am your host Maria Legier, developing new ulcers every day. This is why I am an anti-feminist. Part 7. This willful misunderstanding of the social game as well as the sexual game tuned us onto a frighteningly forceful application of new rules and guidelines that don't really work in accordance with how human beings interact. Quite a lot of our interaction and our communication is non-verbal, based on body language, subtle hints and movements and changes in tone and mannerisms. Which is why, for example, sarcasm is so difficult to read that Redditors tend to use that stroke S to indicate smart-ass sarcasm. Otherwise, it is taken as serious, for lack of body language and tone of voice. Given that our communication these days tend to be more written than it is spoken, more digital than it is physical, I wonder if we have not removed ourselves too quickly and too hastily from physicality, confusing ourselves to believe that the rules of face-to-face communication need to mirror that of written communication, instead of the other way around. Or, more frightening, that the lack of physicality, the lack of body language, has created a generation incapable of reading, using and comprehending body language. To such an extent that a friendly touching of the arm or the shoulder can be interpreted as some terrible affront, something akin to assault, or sexual assault. As we have seen at least one dude, young, shy, awkward teen, be sentenced to a fine of 250 Great British pounds and 5 fucking years on the sex offender registry for touching a girl on the arm and the waist on 2 separate occasions. What used to be normal human interaction is now considered a terrible trespass on someone else's bodily autonomy. This should be terrifying. It should be a sign that we, that is the Western world, are declining rapidly into our own undoing. When someone can be judged and sentenced by law for something so minor, so petty, so insignificant, we are not on the right track. Not as a society, not as a civilization, and not as a people. If we have become so frail that we cannot handle normal human interaction without breaking down in hysterics, wasting social resources and time, we are manufacturing our own doom and demise. Now, of course, it is only women who are allowed to be so frail. Men still have to put up with just about anything this shambling mess of a society can throw our way. Any complaints will bring shame and ridicule our way, and loads of non-arguments, stupidity and personal attacks from arrogant imbeciles floating in the steaming pile of their own hubris. That hubris has the same aroma and texture as grade A bullshit, by the way. On Friday, the 25th of October, I was out walking my dogs. I was approached by a cute little old lady. She seemed to be in her mid to late 70s, though she might have been older. This little old lady was all smiles and laughter, complimented me on my beard, actually touched it, then proceeded to touch my arm and told me that she enjoyed seeing men having beards nowadays, on account of masculinity. We then chit-chatted for a little while before we parted ways with a goodbye and a friendly waving of the hands. Body language again. This small chance encounter made my day, if I am to be perfectly honest. It was one of those slightly surreal everyday happenings that don't mean all that much, but can bring about quite a lot of joy. It is those small things that make a difference. That is what ought to be cherished and remembered. Such small things, such tiny compliments, I believe, is particularly important to men who seldom, if ever, receive compliments on their appearance, or compliments at all for that matter, which is a sad state of affair all on its own. It says a lot about our societies, though I cannot possibly comment on that without the inevitable male tears and fragile male ego nonsense from the very empathetic feminist squads hiding in the bushes and believing themselves to be above any form of criticism. Such small gestures of kindness is just that, small gestures of kindness, unless you are caught in the throes of hysterics, lured into the belief that everyone is out to get you, which is what feminism has managed to lure women into believing, that all men are out to get them, preferably for rape, with or without given consent, but quite possibly and probably also for violence and murder. This is nothing but fear-mongering, akin to psychological terrorism for all I care. This fear-mongering is perpetrated to such an extent that what used to be normal human interaction, light touches, friendly gestures of intimacy, trust and bonding, or a friendly invitation to intimacy, trust and bonding, is now considered threatening, is now considered violence, is now considered assault or sexual assault, if it is a man doing it. And no, intimacy does not equal sex. To my eyes, this is nothing more than an extension, the natural end game and only possible outcome of the old tattletale that men have only one thing on their minds. And that one thing is sex. I have been led to believe by scores of women who seem perfectly able to read minds, as well as being perfectly unable to listen to what men have to say on the matter. There can be no other reason for a man to touch a woman than a wish for sex. This despite how or where he touches her, intent be damned, context be damned, everything be damned but the subjective feelings of the woman. It doesn't matter much what men say in regards to men, the male brain, the male body, male sexuality or what have you. It matters what a woman says. Doubly so if it is a feminist woman, and quadruply so if she is a professor of gender studies, feminist basket weaving and underwater gynocratic ballet. Because this does make perfect sense, you see, in a society in which everyone is entitled to their opinion, as long as they are not male, in which case they are not allowed opinions on this, that or the other. Unless they align with feminist thought and fancy, in which case they are almost entitled to their opinion on this, that or the other. Except this thing, that topic and that other thing. Oddly enough, I doubt the police would be willing to take me seriously if I told them that I felt violated and assaulted by this little old lady touching me without my explicit consent or invitation. On 2 occasions. Oh, the horror. Oh, the humanity. And so forth and so on. This is not to say that I think people should just ignore their own personal boundaries or the personal boundaries of other people. I believe nothing of the sort. Still, there has got to be an understanding that human beings, much like other animals, are physical beings first and foremost. Our bodies, our stance, our unspoken language communicate far more than our words ever will. It is easy to spot a liar based on their body language, for example. Words can say this and they can say that and they can say the other. This does not matter if the language of your body says quite the opposite. And language, such as we have it, is a fairly new invention, all things considered. It is a great tool, to be sure and to be certain, though admittedly it may also be a barrier. Is it not incredible to think that people who do not speak the same language, who do not even speak languages similar to one another, may still communicate quite effectively, understand the other person and also make the other person understand them, simply through hand gestures, body language and things of that nature? It might not make for the most intricate of discussions, but it is still enough to understand the other on small things. I think it is absolutely incredible. Though I am going off on a bit of a tangent here. What I am trying to get at is that I believe we have in many ways killed, or at the very least effectively subdued, a very normal and human form of interaction and communication through mass hysteria, and possibly through an overuse of written communication. We replaced body language with pictograms in the form of emoticons, because we had to figure out some way to communicate body language, pose and facial expressions to convey properly the tone and as such the intent of a message of the written word. Communication is dead, oddly enough due to communication becoming more frequent, constant and easy. What a strange world we live in. The smaller the world gets, the more we are in touch with each other, the more we lose touch with each other. Drifting away, as it were, into self-contained bubbles of social media and other such maladies of the modern age where nothing much matters but the image we can present of ourselves. An image that is superficial, which may, at a single word, be shattered and broken like the illusion it is. For we present and reflect only the best of ourselves, or rather what we believe to be the best of ourselves, how we would like to be perceived rather than who we are. It is not so much deceiving other people as it is deceiving ourselves, duping ourselves into believing that who we present ourselves to be through social media is who we either are or who we really want to be, or who we ought to be, empty virtue signaling and hollow flashing of morals included. This cannot possibly be sustainable. The best way, in my honest opinion, to get to know oneself is to seek solitude and meditation, to learn how to be alone, how to enjoy being alone. Which we seem to never be in this age of social media madness, constantly competing with our digital neighbours over petty things. My lawn is greener than yours, and my house is cleaner, and my virtue is greater, and my kids match my sofa, and I was groped twice by a stranger whereas you were only groped once. I deserve more sympathy, more empathy, and more of that sweet victim cred. Pound me too, you malicious bastard. Why won't anyone pound me? This avoidance of physical communication is worsened quite a bit through the ridiculous weaponization of female fragility employed so effectively by the frantic forces of feminism, demanding every touch, however small and insignificant, be deemed verboten, considered a horrible affront and assault, if it is a man touching a woman. The same goes for a man merely looking at a woman in a manner she feels is improper. Cue the swooning, the sniffing salts, and the whole shebang. I fail to see how this constant state of hysteria, of inner turmoil and frailty is a reflection of strength. But that will have to be as it is, I suppose. There is little personal strength in breaking down over small and insignificant things, though, as I suspect is the case and the point, there is quite a lot of social power for women to present themselves to be weak and in need of protection. Which is where this weaponization of fragility always ends up, a call to change this and change that so women shall feel safe, with an emphasis on feel. I am absolutely certain that women are far more touchy-feely than men in general. Where men punch each other on the shoulder in a gesture of trust and camaraderie, women hug, as an example. Not to mention that women tend to complain about men's lack of intrasexual intimacy, or intimacy at all. Or complain if there's too much of it, for that matter. Of course, the feminist hordes tend to explain this all away with this nonsensical screech of theirs that men have nothing to fear from women, whereas women have much to fear from men. For men are such terrible, violent creatures that any touch, however slight, is an act of violence and of rape. Therefore, women may touch men, and men may not touch women. Mental gymnastics to properly explain away why this call of theirs for equality is ever so lacking in equality. Odd that they fail to mention the scores of white knights that jump into battle to save Milady from the horrible trespasses of the man with a good old-fashioned ass-whooping of the beastly man they result more often than not. Oh well, never mind, and no matter. As proven, however, through the witch hunt that is #MeToo and other such trite and treacherous social movements, men have much to fear from women utilizing the government, social media and the press as their weapon of choice. In so doing, if there is no punishment by the justice system, there is sure to be social ramifications, rendering the man effectively dead and imprisoned, a social outcast from now until the end of time. It does not matter whether the courts find him innocent or not. The court of social opinion will still remember, will still pass judgment and will still punish. Add to this that the #MeToo movement excluded men completely, thus creating the illusion that only women experienced things of this nature, as is, of course, most befitting of a feminist movement hell-bent on portraying men as terribly as possible and women as saintly as possible. And you've got yourself a decent firmament to build upon where the rewriting of the social contract is concerned, once again with women up front and center. Women are victims and men are perpetrators, and so women must be protected from men through implementations of laws that are anything but gender neutral, even when feminism claims to wish for complete gender neutrality. Interesting, is it not? Take a look at the recent alterations of the penal system in the UK and you will see what I mean. Equality under the law has come to mean that the law favours women. By the letter of the law, not only the bias of any judge or jury in the courtroom. It is frightening, and it is spreading like a cancer. For that assure us a living breath equal treatment of the sexes, one set of rules for one sex to follow and a whole other set of rules for the other, be those rules societal or governmental, be those laws unspoken social contracts or written laws. Anything goes, and anything contrary to equal treatment of the sexes is for sure equal treatment of the sexes when seen through the frantic eggshell-frail enlightenment of the feminist hive mind AD the current year. Equality means whatever the hell the feminist forces of frail and fragile weaponized femininity say that it means at any given moment. And to hell with objections, logic, reason and other such trite trash from the patriarchal cis-white heteronormative rape brigades and their white supremacy, whether those that object be men or women, black or white. One is, after all, either a feminist or a sexist, and this is not totalitarian, nor is it tyrannical, for feminism told me so. It says so in the dictionary, remember? You can find the definition of feminism directly underneath the word manipulation, or the phrase manipulation of language in the dictionary. I suggest a popularization of the term femipulation, because why the hell not? The feminist hive mind gender terms for the sole purpose of insulting and belittling men and masculinity, so why should they not have a taste of their own medicine? I am also very fond of overreacting, confusing and femsteria. Besides, manipulation? Man? As in men do this? Bah, humbug. This will not stand. Men don't femipulate, only feminism femipulates with all the femcells they can muster. Obviously, I jest. As much as I enjoy using such words in jest, to shine a light on the stupidity of words such as mansplaining and manspreading, I am not serious in my usage of them, nor would I ever use them in any proper discussion or argument. Should I ever poke my head out of this hermit cave of mine to partake in this discussion, which I highly doubt, but see how easy it is to feign outrage, to willfully perceive something as something other than what it is. History, her story, humankind, peoplekind, woman, wunksen, woman, womens. We should never have graduated from being apes. We are barely domesticated primates, I think. Particularly so when watching the bars close and people file out drunkenly at night. All screeches, gibbering, roars and shit-flinging, body language, touching, hugging, intimacy and all that jazz, which we seek to outlaw, eliminate and annihilate until we all live inside bubbles of bloated self-importance or tragic self-segregation, later to blow up from lack of oxygen or from overdosing on sniffing our own farts. Until the whole thing goes down the drain in a cosmic gangbang where only our lack of sense and empathy gets a taste of the good old-fashioned willy wetting and the humpbacked beast of 1,000 backs, where mutual respect and cooperation is given a forced double penetration by the terrible beast of the apocalypse, this time wearing the wart-speckled face of political correctness and wielding the double-edged dildo, one dildo named shame and the other ridiculed. And I looked and beheld an angle. All the while, the world grows ever more chaotic, society grows ever more confined and controlled and regulated, down to the minutest detail of our day-to-day lives being governed and censored. For the political must be personal and the personal must be political, to such an extent that people prod their noses where they have no justifiable reason to prod their noses, mingling in the affairs of other people and asking, why does she cook dinner? What do you do then? Ignoring any and all which the man do in our relationship in order to shame him for having a partner that does anything in our relationship. We are not on the correct path. We are breaking down. Bit by bit we are eroding and slipping into the sea. Caught in self-aggrandizement, hollow virtue signaling, petty squabbles and this constant state of confrontation, resentment, anger and self-importance to the point of absolute absurdity. Everything has become vague and wishy-washy, washed out with bleach until nothing means anything and anything can mean everything, because nothing matters anymore. We have had a good run of relative stability, and now it all comes crashing down. With a whimper and a shiver, not a giant explosion, not a gigantic bang. Here ends part 7. Join me next week for more of this cruel and unusual ramble, lest I fall into the singularity and get swallowed by cocaine-covered clowns. Makes about as much sense as anything, I suppose. Honk. Honk. Thank you very much for watching. Here follows an outro most befitting a video of this nature, a blatant attempt at virtual panhandling. Should you wish to support this channel, as well as my blog and any further endeavors this strange path will take me on, there are a few ways you can do that. The easiest would be to like, share and subscribe, as well as clicking the sometimes functional notification bell. Having the message, such as it is, manspread and mansplained far and wide will do wonders. You could also support my rambling and barely contained insanity by buying my books, which are linked below. More books will be made available as time allows. I also have a Redbubble shop, linked below, where you can buy prints in various forms of some of the artwork presented in my videos. Or you can contact me through the contact form on my blog for original artwork, commissions or prints direct from the source, so to speak. Until next time, I am your humble bearded bard, Morea Legier, manspreading majestically beneath the steel sky of doom.